Are you looking for insane gaming performance in a crazy small form factor gaming PC build? Welcome back to PC Builder, I'm Jason. This best Mini ITX build guide is going to give you the knowledge to assemble the best SFF PC build in 2025. We'll take you through the critical decision points to get the best SFF PC case, the right CPU and GPU combo for your Mini ITX PC build, and help you avoid critical mistakes with GPU riser cables, CPU cooling, and SFX PSUs. And we'll include some sample SFF PC build lists with specific product recommendations. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by Meter, the company building better networks. Now before YouTube, I ran operations at nonprofits, and like most businesses, our biggest headache was networking, from inflexible pricing to complex and fragmented tools. I wish we'd had Meter. Meter builds out full-stack networking solutions that actually work for business. They design the hardware, they write the firmware, and they build the software. They handle deployment and ongoing management, so it all works together. Meter gives you full control with deep visibility, policy-level control, and ongoing support. It's a single integrated solution that scales from branch offices, retail stores, warehouses, and large campuses to data centers. If you're ready to offload your networking headaches to a trusted partner, go to meter.com/PCBuilder to book a demo now, or click the link in the video description. Let's start off with Mini PC cases, because this is really going to dictate a lot about the rest of our build. SFF PC cases come in a variety of shapes and sizes. They come from roomier Mini PC cases that are going to fit relatively large graphics cards, regular tower style air coolers, or even liquid AIO coolers, to very small cases with very strict constraints on GPU size and CPU cooling. Now, some of these cases are going to come with glass panels, while others of them, they're fully metal mesh. And the form factor, they range from the lunchbox style, some actually include handles, to a more vertical tower and console style. Let's go through some of the most popular Mini PC cases in 2025. Now, starting with the case in our build, that's the Fractal Terra. It comes in black, white, and a green color, and it utilizes a movable center spine that allows you to change the width for your GPU or additional height for your CPU cooler, depending on your build. It comes with a PCIe riser cable included. Now, warning that not all Mini PC cases do, and is also one of the more expensive PC cases readily available on the market. Other popular lunchbox style cases include the Lee A4H2O, similar dual chamber PC case with included riser cable, but it can fit up to a 240mm AIO cooler. Lee's A3 PC case is a slightly larger single chamber PC case, which is quite affordable, and it can fit up to a micro ATX motherboard, a 360mm AIO, and large GPUs up to 415mm long. Johnsbo is another popular Mini PC case maker that often utilizes glass panels in its lunchbox style PC cases, like the Johns Plus Z20, which comes with a handle and can fit 240mm AIO coolers. You also have cases only available through manufacturers themselves, like the popular N-Case M and T series lineups, which are definitely on the pricier side, but they're very high quality. Since this is the most popular Mini PC case style, I'll link some additional ones down in the video description. For tower style small form factor PC cases, we have the Thermalright Tower series, which include the Tower 200, which are pretty iconic. They come in a variety of colors, but they're actually quite large in size. Not everyone considers them a small form factor PC case because of it. Now, on the smaller side is the Johnsbo TK series, like the TK-0, which includes wraparound glass panel and a 230mm GPU length limit. Or if you prefer a fully meshed tower, the C6 ITX case is also quite affordable. And then there's the Cooler Master Encore 100 Air in black or white. Console style PC cases, they're far fewer in number, but if you want that look, I do particularly like the Fractal Ridge in white and black with a dual chamber design, and which can be used either in a standing or a horizontal position. Silverstone also makes a lot of these cases, and they make some retro ones as well. So what's the best CPU and GPU combo for your SFF PC build, including some of the smallest Mini ITX PC builds in 2025? Well, we do have a best CPU and GPU combo guide for PC builds in 2025. It's aimed at ATX and micro ATX size PC cases, where we can get plenty of cooling and airflow. But depending on the Mini PC case that we choose, CPU and GPU cooling and case airflow often dictate what we're able to do, at least at a comfortable noise level. Now, to maximize our FPS in any PC build, we want to get the fastest graphics card that we can afford, then just get a CPU that's not going to bottleneck it. We'd also love to use very power efficient CPUs in these smaller builds to reduce the cooling load. For very budget Mini ITX builds, we can consider CPUs like the i5-12400F or i5-14400F, along with the increasingly hard to find Ryzen 5600. Unfortunately, Mini ITX motherboards for these CPUs, they're somewhat hard to find in a lot of regions right now, but cases that do accept micro ATX motherboards can help that. For these budget CPUs, we want to pair a minimum of a relatively weak GPU like an RX 6600 or RTX 5050 and go all the way up to an RX 9060 XT 16GB or RTX 5060 Ti 16GB GPU. For more mid-range Mini ITX PC builds using a faster graphics card, I like the Ryzen 7600, 7600X, 7500F, or the 9600X. But I'd still avoid the Ryzen 7400F. It uses thermal paste rather than solder under the IHS and hits very, very high temperatures. Typically, I recommend enabling Precision Boost Overdrive in the BIOS, but if you find that your cooling is somewhat challenged, then I would likely turn this off as a first step towards bringing those temperatures under control. Any of these CPUs pair really well with GPUs from the RTX 5060 Ti 16GB or the RX 9060 XT 16GB, all the way up to even an RTX 5080, but at that point I would consider moving on to a more powerful X3D CPU, though of course those CPUs, they need quite a bit more cooling. If you want a little bit more CPU power, you could consider like the Ryzen 9700X, which is easier to cool without Precision Boost Overdrive turned on, but at the time of filming, it's also quite expensive for the additional 2 cores, and it doesn't provide more than about 5% extra gaming performance. Moving up to high-end Mini ITX PC builds, utilizing a higher-end graphics card, at least an RX 9070 XT 16GB or the RTX 5070 Ti 16GB. Now we're definitely going to get benefit here from moving from a Ryzen 5 CPU to like a 7800X3D or a Ryzen 9800X3D. In this particular case, the 9800X3D, it uses a new 3D V-cache, which is below the CPU, and it makes the CPU easier to cool than the 7800X3D. For that reason, I'd probably prefer to spend another $120 for the 9800X3D, but that's quite a bit of money, and if that price difference would have allowed you to jump up to a bigger GPU tier, then that should be our top priority. Go with the 7800X3D. Either of these CPUs is an excellent fit for the fastest graphics cards currently available in the RTX 5080 or RTX 5090. Now, RTX 50 Super Series, they're not out at the time of filming, but from what I've seen of the leaked specs, it's not going to change any of our recommendations here. Now, here's a major GPU mistake to avoid if you're going to use a PCIe riser cable to connect your GPU to your motherboard in a case like this. If you're using an RTX 50 series or RX 9000 series GPU, those are all PCIe Gen 5. And if you're using a motherboard that's also PCIe Gen 5 at the main GPU slot, you'll likely get a black screen on boot. That's because most cases are still shipping with older PCIe Gen 4 riser cables. Now the motherboard PCIe speed, it's set to auto by default. It then pings the GPU and GPU says, hey, I also run at PCIe Gen 5, but unfortunately the cable doesn't support that speed and you get that black screen. Now there's 2 fixes for this. Number 1, you can get a PCIe Gen 5 GPU riser cable that's sized for our PC case. Sadly, that's not usually an option, at least right now. Solution number 2, we set the PCIe speed manually in the BIOS to PCIe Gen 4 to match the cable. If your CPU has integrated graphics, you're going to want to plug the monitor into the motherboard display output instead of the GPU, and then also disconnect the GPU riser cable from your motherboard. And yes, that last part is important. If you want to see how I know, watch our channel member live stream where I built this PC live and I grappled with that issue. So yes, disconnect the GPU riser cable from the motherboard. Turn it back on, go into the BIOS PCIe subsystem settings, change it from auto, switch it over to manual, and then select PCIe 4.0. Then save and exit, shut down, reconnect the riser cable, and connect the monitor to the GPU. If your CPU doesn't have integrated graphics, you're gonna need to do a test bench build of your PC on a non-conductive surface. You can often use the motherboard box and then plug your GPU directly into the motherboard without using a riser cable. Then get in the BIOS and then change it to PCIe Gen 4. Let's talk about the best motherboard for your small form factor build. Now, because Mini ITX motherboards, they're very similar to each other, small feature differences, it might tip the balance when you're deciding on the right one. There also aren't that many models as ASUS, Gigabyte, and MSI. They usually make one Mini ITX motherboard per chipset, while ASRock sometimes makes 2. For our build, MSI sent over their MAG B850i Edge Ti Wi-Fi, which did pair nicely with our Ryzen 9600X. B850 motherboards allow the use of AMD's auto overclocking utility called Precision Boost Overdrive, which we definitely want to enable for more performance on our build if we can. This motherboard comes with 2 M.2 SSD slots, upgraded audio, 6 high-speed USB ports, including a Type-C, 5 gigabit LAN, and very conveniently located BIOS, flashback, and CMOS clear buttons on the rear I/O panel, which thankfully has become the standard for most Mini ITX motherboards. Of course, our motherboard will work with any Ryzen AM5 CPU, so if you're using a different CPU, make sure to get a motherboard that's compatible with it. We have guides for the best Ryzen motherboard and best Intel motherboard that you can check out for more help. Note that at the time of filming, I'm not recommending ASRock motherboards for Ryzen 9000 X3D CPUs due to what seems to be ongoing issues. They're fine for everything else, including the 7800 X3D and the Ryzen 9000 non-X3D CPUs, like the Ryzen 9600X, but I just don't feel confident that they're fixed yet for like the 9800 X3D and other Ryzen 9000 series X3D CPUs. I'll leave a note in the pinned comment if that changes. Of course, the cost of the ITX motherboards, it's often a factor. As we discussed before, some small form factor PC cases also offer compatibility with slightly larger micro ATX motherboards, which are often a lot cheaper. But this compatibility, it does sometimes come at the cost of allowing us to use like an AIO cooler or fans in certain positions, so double check your PC case's compatibility before you buy it. All right, let's jump into the best CPU cooler for small form factor builds. Now this is going to depend entirely on your PC case, but there are some general principles that you're going to want to keep in mind. Now first, if your SFF PC case has room for a 240mm or larger AIO cooler, I'd strongly recommend using one. The pump block on the CPU, it's almost certainly going to meet any height restrictions, and the heat, it's pumped directly out of the PC case, not just vented internally. In fact, the AIO cooler fans, they're doing double duty, cooling the CPU through the radiator, and they're providing case airflow as well. Decent liquid CPU coolers can be had for as little as about $45, like the Thermalright Aqua Elite V3. And remember, if you don't want any RGB, you can either buy a non-RGB version or just don't plug in the ARGB cables, or don't even turn on the ARGB in the BIOS itself. For AIO radiator placement, just remember that most AIO coolers have the pump in the CPU block, and that needs to be located at least a little bit below the highest point in the radiator. This is mostly a caution against bottom radiator placement unless you have one of those rare AIOs that's designed for this with a pump in the radiator block. For cases that don't really allow for AIO cooling, there are a range of air cooling solutions depending on the cooler height restrictions for your PC case. Now most single chamber PC cases are going to allow the use of at least a single tower air cooler like the id Cooling SC214XT, the Thermalright Assassin 120, or the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Black. And there are shorter tower air coolers that utilize 90mm fans like the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 90. An increasing number of small form factor PC cases also allow the use of larger dual tower CPU air coolers like the id Cooling A620 Pro SE or Thermalright Phantom Spirit 120 or the Peerless Assassin 120 SE. Now my advice, it's generally go bigger on the cooler if we can and it fits into our build aesthetic. So if your case is entirely metal mesh and it can fit a taller single tower air cooler with a 120mm fan, I'd grab that over a shorter one with a 90mm fan. And if similarly it can fit a dual tower air cooler like the Phantom Spirit, I'd go with that. Of course, many of the tightest small form factor PC cases are only going to allow you to use a low profile CPU cooler like this one. Now, getting the best low-profile CPU cooler for your Mini ITX build, it's going to depend on the maximum height clearance in your PC case. There are a number of very good low-profile CPU coolers, including the incredibly affordable Thermalright AXP lineup. With a number after the AXP, that's the size of the fan it's going to use, and the number afterwards with an X is the height of the cooler. id Cooling also has great affordable low-profile CPU coolers called the IS lineup, with the number afterwards being the CPU cooler height. And of course, Noctua makes incredibly good low-profile CPU coolers in their NH-L lineup, and many are specific to a particular CPU socket, so check your compatibility. They also offer a stacking duct system for their low-profile coolers, which can create direct airflow between the CPU cooler and the outside of the PC case. Depending on the mesh of your PC case, it can create a little bit of noise at higher fan speeds, but it does lower the CPU temps. One important thing to always check for on low-profile CPU coolers is their maximum RAM height compatibility. With our cooler, we needed to go with G-Skill's low-profile Ripjaw series. Their Flare series is also great low-profile RAM, and those do include AMD Expo timings. Now, for specific RAM requirements, check out our Best RAM for Gaming 2025 video that's linked down in our How to Build a PC playlist in the description. We go through all the CPUs and what RAM you need. Of course, we also have to consider case airflow. Now, many fan makers produce slim fans, which can fit into tighter places like the Arctic P12 slim fans that we use at the bottom of our case here, with a small trade-off in that they may have reduced static pressure at similar fan speeds. but it's better having a slim fan than not having one at all. Now, in cramped cases where cables might push up against fan blades, you can buy a very affordable fan grill like this one here that protects the fans from this, and I'll leave some of these linked down in the video description as well. You're going to want to carefully consider balancing case intake and exhaust, even as the cases that seem more open and mesh are going to have some static pressure to overcome. And if your GPU is mounted in such a way that it contributes to case airflow, like in our build, consider that as well. Note that if your GPU is positioned to contribute to case airflow, sometimes if the GPU fans are a little too close to the panel, you might get noise either from the air pressure or from cavitation of the fans or the side case panel. So you might need to tinker with the setup or the fan speeds to get the build just right. Finally, let's talk power supply and cable management. Now for our build, we went with the Cooler Master SFX Gold V850, and this is the ATX 3.1 version. Some cases might fit a regular ATX size PSU, like the Lee & Lee A3. If using an NVIDIA GPU, one of our primary challenges might be properly seating the 12-volt high power cable so that it doesn't bend improperly and set us up for a melting cable. If we had used an NVIDIA GPU, this particular PSU comes with a right angle 12-volt high power cable, which would come in handy. Using an AMD GPU, it also has its own issues as we needed to use multiple 8-pin cables, and that led to quite a bit of extra cable management. One particular thing to pay attention to when you're doing cable management is trying not to block any fans too much, even the PSU fan. Now, speaking of cable management, my advice, just think through that a little bit before assembling the PC, at least for the major cables like the PSU cables, the case front panel connectors, and the fans. But honestly, even doing all that, I absolutely guarantee you at some point in the build, you're gonna realize, oh no, I should have run this cable over there, and you're likely gonna have to take at least part of the build apart. Don't get frustrated, it is just part of the small form factor experience, and honestly, it happens to everybody, even me. So how much does an SFF build like this cost? Now this build with the Ryzen 9600X, a B850 ITX motherboard, RX 9070 XT 16GB graphics card, in the Fractal Terra comes out to just under $1,750 US right now. Note the PC part picker actually tells me the cooler isn't compatible with this case, but while it was a tight fit on the bottom of the case, it does seem to work just fine. My advice here, check all the specs yourself. Don't leave it up to an automatic parts selector. Remember, I built this PC on a channel member live stream, which you can watch by becoming a channel member yourself. Click the join button below for access to our monthly channel member live streams and other fun perks. For a comparison micro ATX build with similar quality parts and the same CPU and GPU combo comes out to just over $1,400. Most of the price difference does come down to using one of the more expensive SFF PC cases in the Fractal Terra, and that price has just gone up $20 in just the last couple weeks. We're also using an ITX motherboard and an SFX PSU along with additional low profile CPU cooler costs. You can of course go with cheaper parts. I'll leave a more value oriented build link down in the video description along with this build that we did here to get you started. I'll also leave some alternative parts linked down there for PC cases, for coolers, and for PSUs. If you got value out of this video, please give it a like, and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. Check out everything linked below, and I'll catch you on the next one.